hope this thing doesn't fall on me again. So something interesting that I read on X, or rather, kind of an interesting initial post, and then the replies to that post, sort of led me to the creation of this video to explain exactly what is happening because there are some radical feminists who are noticing men who are agreeing with them, who are following them. Uh, I I don't know what some of the words means. Like I don't know what sus is. I've seen this word before, but I don't really know. I'm not literate on that. And then there's the other like I guess like the initial post is like feeling weirded out or whatever and being like, why are you agreeing? And some men are using it as a teaching tool. There was one man who said that's what it was about. But I feel like in order to explain what is going on, you need to understand that it is not accidental. There is a very, very important reason why this is happening. And it's as simple as this. There are more and more women and men who are drifting towards uh, what we would call gynarchic values. If you look at the how interested people have been in FLRs today compared to over a decade ago, it's just grown in popularity. There are changes happening at the level of relationships, and what is going on here is that people who are, say, gynarchists or people who are into these other kinds of things that people label as just fetishes, there's nothing more to see here. The reason why they're being sought out, why radical feminists are catching the attention of these gynarchists, this is the main reason why. Because from the perspective of a gynarchist, we don't see all that much meaningful difference between what we believe and what a radical feminist believes. In fact, the radical feminist who inspired the creation of this video mentioned something about matriarchy. So when you bring up matriarchy or gynarchy or any of these concepts, you are going to naturally attract men and women who are interested in these things. There's also part of there's sort of the curiosity of it all, which is, why do you call yourself a radical feminist and not a gynarchist? Like, what is the dividing line? That's, to me, that natural curiosity is going to attract people to see your content because they want to find out, like, are you ever going to be officially calling yourself that? Or do you believe that there's an important dividing line? Where is that dividing line? Why is that a critical thing for you personally? This is something that, the rest of us can't ignore. And frankly speaking, I'm very fascinated by radical feminists, especially because I think that they are a lot more willing to entertain concepts related to gynarchy and matriarchy, as opposed to, I guess, what they would call liberal feminists, who are more interested in maintaining the status quo. And so whenever I watch these videos or whenever I read comments from these individuals, that's what I seek to find out. What is it that makes us so different? You don't like, and this is another thing too. I don't know if the person caught it, but there's male misandrists. There's males that don't like other males, and they're going to sympathize with you because they've also had to deal with their bullshit. For example, when I'm out cannon bottle collecting, most of my problems, 99% of my problems, are another guy. I don't have women bothering me. In fact, when I run by three women, I think, thank goodness I'm going to be safe. When I run by three guys, you know what I'm thinking? Am I going to be in the hospital today? Are they going to decide that I'm the target? I remember one time when I went to a hospital, I talked with an older gentleman. He was assaulted by some young men. I have never once in my life, in any of my trips to the hospitals that I've been to because I was sick in my 20s, I have never ever heard a story from an old guy going, "Well, you won't believe this, but there are these five young girls about 2021. They just came out of nowhere with baseball bats and beat me bloody." Like, that never happens. Literally almost never happens. You will never hear that story anywhere. So naturally, I have a lot of angry feelings towards other men because they are often an impediment to what it is that I do. I go out and I collect bottles and I don't feel 100% safe because I've had one of them who almost initiated a fight with me over nothing. And I had to walk away from the individual because I didn't want to hurt him, didn't want to get hurt, and I didn't want anybody else to be hurt as a result of that altercation or potential altercation. And males on the street are known at times to be very aggressive, very hostile. And this isn't the only time this has happened. I've walked home from my college. I used to walk home from a local community college. It took me about an hour and 45 minutes to get from the college to my home. And sometime on my way home once, there were these males who were stalking me in a vehicle, making me feel unsafe. I was the only reason why I think they didn't do anything is because they didn't know what I had in my pocket. Because I was gripping something really hard, and I think they saw it. And they were like, "Oh no, we're not doing this." Because a predator knows if they're going to get hurt, they're going to run it through their head and think, "Is this worth it to mess with this guy? Because I don't feel like losing an eyeball. I don't want this." Eventually, they moved on and left me alone. But I was being stalked. They knew that I was alone. This is what happened. Can you? And this is not even telling. Not even, you listen to these stories about what the women go through. Way worse. But this is just what a guy is going through when he's by himself. If I don't have 2, 3, or 4 people backing me up, these motherfuckers are crazy. They create a general sense of unsafety. So when I see a woman, whatever she calls herself, but especially when I see someone saying they're a radical feminist, and then I'm hearing this stuff about how men are like this or like that, I'm like, yeah, they are like that. I find agreement with with many of the observations they have regarding men. So in many respects, there's a lot of common ground here. You have misandric feelings. You have observations of the shitty behavior that males engage in. These things are stuff that gynarchic males, or particular males who are into gynarchy or this other stuff, and who do have those feelings, they can connect to that because they're looking at that and going, "Hey, I don't like that motherfucker either. I don't like these people either." Because why? They're gynocentric. They revolve their lives around helping the women and the women and the girls in their life. That's what they do. That's what gynocentric men are. And so they're going to have natural feelings of hostility towards anybody who does things that are like that cause those problems. So when you mention matriarchy, when you talk about the feelings you have towards the observations, you talk about these other things. But again, we're not that different. I mean, we're not really, like, we're not on separate planets. So the difference, if anything, and I'm not sure what it is because I'm still trying to figure out what kind of common ground could unite these two. Because I've been very interested in, for the longest time, getting a bunch of gynarchists and radical feminists into a podcast or an audio recording where you could actually juxtapose these differences. I have wanted to see for the longest time a conversation on where there is ground, in other words, where we can agree with each other and say, okay, we're down with this and we're not. I think what we can both agree on is, I don't necessarily think we agree on treatment, like how we should treat the problem, because there are people who are separatists. And I think that may be a critical distinction, because I see it all the time. I see radical feminists who are interested in separatism, whereas gynarchists are interested in establishing certain systems of control within communities. In other words, ways to regulate male aggression and behavior so that women and girls are safe. There is a primary difference there, because the thing is, neither of these ideas are inherently incorrect. They both have the same goal, which is to provide safety for women and girls. Now, I noticed with the 4B movement, they're totally removing the substance lives of men because they can't trust the men. They're worried the men will beat on them, will hurt them. And so, through the act of either self isolation or only having friends who share this ideology, they are effectively protecting themselves from this male aggression, from male aggressors. And so, in this sense, the separatist movement, and I actually find it very encouraging. And I don't condemn people for not following my path because you have to do whatever is good for you. You know how many times I've been talking to my community trying to find somebody who's a local gynarchist? It's extremely difficult. It's difficult to find someone who says, yeah, women should be in charge, but then to go beyond that point and say, hey, maybe we should work together. It's difficult. So I can sympathize with the woman who says, look, I'm not finding anyone who's supporting me. I'm not finding anyone who's trying to help me work this out. In fact, I'm just tired of dealing with people who want to say to me that I just need to keep the family together ever. Like my health, my well-being, my dreams, none of that matters, right? Well, fuck you people. I relate with the separatist movement. I relate with separatist ideals. And I don't think that those are inherently a wrong solution when you're not getting the kind of support you need. If there was a community that protected women and girls, separatism would not be a thing in that area. But separatism becomes a thing when you lose support from your family, your friends, when you feel like there's just no way out for you, and that this system that you exist in does not support, it's not, sorry, I'm using that word too much. It doesn't provide you with the things that you need to live a higher quality of life. In fact, it will sap those, it will steal those things from you. So there is the separatist element at play here that I think is actually appropriate. Now, one thing that philosophically I've always kind of, well, not philosophically, but I think more of a direct question is there some way to reconcile separatism and community? Because they seem to be diametrically opposed. And this is one of the concerns I've had while interacting with radical feminists, at least insofar as my personal goals are concerned and the goals of the Gynarchy community, which is they are saying, they are advocating increasingly for separatism, which I sympathize with. And then you have other people in my community who are increasingly wanting community, wanting to live next to each other. So it does kind of make me wonder if there's any real way to meet in the middle or cooperate with each other, and I don't know that there is. If one person wants to self-isolate because they're dealing with a fucking virus, in this case, widespread serious misogyny, and the other group is like, well, we need to accept the fact that men are assholes and that we have to regulate men. And see, this is the thing that Gynarchists men acknowledge, which is we acknowledge not only the fact that we personally have asshole moments, but that men in general, on some level, shape, and form, are assholes. And so we believe within this community that men have to be regulated in some way, shape, or form by women and girls. In other words, there's an underlying philosophy that Gynarchists have that either women control men or men control women. The basic concept is unless there is enough power that women and girls have to secure their own safety within their communities, that power will be held by men, and men will abuse it to the detriment of not only themselves, but everybody else. I don't know if I fully explained it, but that's the reason why some of these submissive men, these other people, are showing up in your comments, because people are trying to find a way to team up, to cooperate or coordinate. They're trying to find like-minded people because, frankly speaking, even though they have their own community, even within that community, not everyone is cooperating. Not everyone is acting in tandem with each other in exactly the same way. And so when they start seeing these people talking about matriarchy and other things, they get encouraged. They're like, well, wait a minute. I'm not really having any success in my community necessarily in the ways I want to, but look at what these people are talking about. There's also the idea that, could radical feminism be a gateway to Gynarchy? Could it be a gateway to Gynarchic philosophy? So there's a lot of reasons why this is happening.